All right, TN Conversation Live. Yes, we are excited. It's a lot going on. Yeah, it's a lot going on, and we're going to talk about it. I have on with me one of my sisters, Chakirah Parker. She's a financial educator, a trainer, a coach, and she is all up in everything that is going on in the last, what, 7, 8 days now? It's a lot going on.
It's a
It's a
lot going
lot
on.
going on. Yeah. And I'm going to jump right on into it. Um, I have heard yesterday, last night, first thing this morning about this freeze and
Mm,
what's going on with the freeze. Um, will your Social Security be affected? Will your jobs be affected? Uh, your funds, your Medicare, daycares, your SNAP. Uh, Shakira, let's talk about this freeze because I
okay.
know you've been um, on the front line of so many things, definitely in the banking world, the financial world, educating us. You have educated me on a number of things throughout the years. And tell us what you know about this freeze and what we should be doing as a community, definitely as a family, as a household going forward.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much that has to be said. We have some deadlines that are coming up that we're still watching to make sure if this is going to be permanent. So we do know that that it was halted. Thank God
Mm-hmm.
we know that it was halted because as of 5 o'clock yesterday, and let's
Mm-hmm.
be clear about how this all came out. The memo from the OMB was just put out the evening before. And so the scrambling and the frenzy that happened was because the notice was sent, like we've seen a lot of notices come out, whether it may be a tweet, on X or a rant, and it is what it is. But so these agencies that were going to receiving the money, they only had a little bit of warning. It wasn't anything it was preempted that they knew about. So anyway, the National Council on Nonprofits and the American Public Health Association, they filed a lawsuit yesterday to put the freeze on hold. And so that's where you see that there was a little reprieve, but it's only going to be temporarily blocked just until February 3rd. I mean, that's just coming up over here on Monday. Um, some things that we do know that were not supposed to be affected were Medicaid and food stamps, small business assistance, Head Start, rental assistance, and Pell Grants for the college students. But what ended up happening, Candy, was that they were locked out of the system in which they access all of those funds. And so what was supposed to happen did not happen. I have a list also of all of the programs, over 2,600 programs that will be impacted. So, I mean, this is something that's quite major that we have to be aware of.
Said, I think that people need to be not necessarily glued to their television, but I
Hmm.
think we definitely should be making ourselves aware of what is going on. And definitely, if you work in any of these entities that they are talking about, informing yourself, your family members that may not be definitely paying attention to what
Mm.
is going on. I did hear that um, the uh, some of the daycare programs will not be affected. I was listening to them talk about Meals on Wheels. Have we heard anything in reference to the Meals on Wheels?
Yes, from Meals on Wheels, they said since it was directly receiving support, that wouldn't be paused. But that's not consistent with all the programs.
Mm-hmm.
I have WIC up here, and if you want, I'm gonna. I can share my share my screen here. But as you can see, the WIC program had to address this. I mean, at
Mhm.
the umpteenth hour, and they said that they're actively seeking clarity
Mhm.
from the administration if they will be subject to the Office of Management. And in the meantime, they're just asking participants to remain patient and
Mhm.
continue to be redeemed as usual. As
Okay.
they said we are as applaud the staff for the state and local WIC offices around the country who work heroically to support individuals and families in the communities. But they again ended the whole thing with uncertainty. there's
Mhm.
there's no certainty, and
Mhm.
we know from this WIC program, 3 trillion was spent on federal assistance programs in 2024. um, and we know how important this WIC program is. So this is just one example of a program that does impact people directly that may be affected.
Mhm. And also, when uh, on WIC, the Medicaid programs. Have you heard anything on the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid programs? Is there anything new with that? I'm sure
Yeah,
everything, of
no,
course.
Medicaid, and Social Security, those programs will not be impacted.
Hmm.
That those are the things that we know for sure, that those programs will not be impacted. Um,
Hmm.
the
And
other
then
one, mhm.
the Pell Grants. I thought about that last night when I was
Yeah,
listening. The Pell Grants, because we have a number of, definitely a lot of young people in our communities that are
yeah,
at some of our technical schools that rely on the Pell Grants.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We do Medicaid, food stamps, Head Start. They said rental assistance and the federal Pell Grants
Mhm.
will not be affected. I know the housing community, though, are still trying to find clarification as far as what programs will be impacted and how they'll be impacted. I think that even if the direct programs won't be, the
Mhm.
grants or loans that maybe support other programs may be.
Mhm. So you think that they will be affected eventually?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is here is a quote. Here is a quote, and I can pull up, the actual memo from the office from the president. Let me do that so that we can really understand what he's targeting and
Okay.
the reason why. Let me just pull that out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Tea and Conversation Live. I'm on with Coach Shakirah Parker. She's a financial educator, a trainer in our community, and she definitely stays abreast to um, all things that are going on.
So
Um,
this is the organization that, thank God, is fighting it through legislation. This is the one that handles the nonprofits. So thank God that they handle this and went to file an injunction to basically to stop this. And they sent a letter to the housing department asking for clarity. So they're going about this through legal means to really be able to enforce and impact this. Hold on one moment. Okay, just wanted to get this letter up for you. Here you go. So this is the memo that everyone's referring to that was sent. The American people elected by Donald Trump to be president of the United States gave him and made a mandate to increase the impact of every federal taxpaying dollar. So this is the memo that was sent. Now we're going to pay attention to this part right here that is what he's focusing on: the use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars. This part right here, if you take it step by step, is what he's attacking. So if you're ever wondering about what programs are going to be affected, then you have to think in the form of, look it up, Google it. What is Marxist equity? That's a socialist program. What is transgenderism? So these are the programs. Green New Deal, this has to do with energy. These are the policies that he's coming after. In the second in the second page, he specifically talks about what he's going to temporarily pause and to make sure. And here it goes again. He's reiterating it. Now, one thing about Trump is he's going to tell you exactly what he's doing. Right? He's not going to play around with it. We just have to pay attention, just like you said. But he's going to tell us exactly what he's doing. And by the executive orders, including but not limited to financial assistance for foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. So he wants to comb through all of these programs to see if any of these programs are supporting those type of initiatives. And if they are, then he will cut the funding. So that is essentially what we have to pay attention to.
Hmm. And where can people find that information that are um, in those job spaces, are people that are, because people, just listening to the news last evening,
Mm,
people are afraid and
yeah,
not knowing what they're going to do, not knowing if they're going to have to find a daycare for their children, or
yep,
have to pay full price, or have to keep their
mm-hmm,
children home. They're nervous about their SNAP, which we do know that that's not going to be affected. But
right,
people are worried about that. They are afraid. So we have to educate ourselves and educate our community,
yeah.
educate. I don't know if that needs to be something, from.
I
Uh,
think that some of the best ways to
mhm.
to follow what's going on and seeing how it really impacts you is to find associations the associations that deal in that space. So, for example, I would be
Yes.
finding associations that deal in housing. I go to WIC directly and look at their associations because they're putting out the information, and they're putting out directly, and they're telling you real time, this is what we did today. This is how this is our update. In fact, if I were to share another screen, they're telling you real time, and they're posting because they need support. These associations need people to make sure that they're supporting them, so that when they're going to the federal government, they're saying, we have this many people impacted, we've heard from this many people, and they're wondering about, is it going to affect us? Like, for example, um, this association, here's an example of association. This is the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Homelessness service guidance regarding the federal grant loan program. So this is a perfect example of when you're needing and you're trying to research in your own life what is going to be impacted. Go to the associations, the national associations that are on the ground that are addressing these. So they just put this out, as you saw, January 28th, and they're updating this throughout the day. Late yesterday, the White House dictated to order federal agencies. This is a temporary pause, is scheduled to go into effect 5 p.m. And they're going to tell you, this is what we know. So this one right here has wonderful advice as far as what to do. So they're telling other agencies across the country. So again, we're looking for people who are authorities in that specific area of interest. So they're telling if you're locked out and you becomes available, submit legitimate grant drawdowns. So this is advice, and Miss Candy, I know you have a lot of people who are agencies locally, but this is the national direction: is that go ahead and get the monies that you have currently right now, draw it down, because the systems may go down and they may not be able to be available. The Alliance sent out action alert urging Congress to stand up and speak today. Make your voice, tell Congress what the impacts are. They're also asking agencies to start doing a needs assessment. Find out how many people are being impacted in your particular area that are unable to receive funding. The Alliance is recommending a needs assessment for the next 30 to 60 days, working with your local providers to begin assessing the impact so you can provide this to this office. They should start analyzing their own grants, rereading on themselves, looking at the portfolios. How many households are you helping? How many people are you helping? How many units are going to be affected? We need the data. You and I, we were talking about this. We need the information so that we can provide this, so we're not just shooting off the hip. If you're going to have a potential short-term funding, reach out to your local and state lawmakers. Our local and state lawmakers need to be having sessions right now about how they can help or how they can assist. The worst thing we can do is go into a panic or into a frenzy. Right now, like what you're doing in providing information to the public, we should be hearing from our lawmakers, our officials right now about what resources are available. If you're over a foundation or a philanthropic organization, do we have supplemental funding streams to support operations while they're impacted? Remember, we had a government shutdown and we all pulled together as a community to help those federal workers who were impacted. Those are things that we need to do right now. Providers who administer rental assistance should contact the landlords and alert them of potential delays in payment. This, because then they may need to then let their lender know, you know, that we may have um, a late, or we may be having something because of this. So it can have a ripple effect, but the worst thing we can do is ignore it and act like it doesn't matter.
So that definitely sounds like to me, Sister Shakira is being proactive at this time.
Absolutely.
Being
Yeah,
proactive.
absolutely. And I would say at the local and the state level right now, they should be having some answers, reaching
Mm-hmm,
out to their colleagues in Washington,
mm-hmm,
and then also providing constituents at home with resources
mm-hmm,
and information that's available
mm-hmm,
to them. Because Trump has already said that he's going to be handing a lot of power back over to the state. Are we
mm-hmm,
prepared? How do they need to get prepared? How do our local officials need to be gearing up for what's coming?
mm-hmm,
We have six cabinet members out of around 20 something that are filled right now. As they start filling up their cabinet positions, there's going to be a lot more shakeup. And he's already said that he's giving a lot of control back over to the state. Are you guys ready? What does
mm-hmm,
that look like?
mm-hmm,
Are you ready in housing?
mm-hmm,
Are you ready, for veteran support? How are you? Because he already said he wants to have less control on the federal level and hand it back to the state.
mm-hmm. And would you um, suggest that our definitely our elected officials on the state level, our representatives, um, our senators, those people in those positions, definitely coming back and educating our community. Those town hall
Absolutely.
meetings and other
Yep.
things that they can definitely get us ready for. I
Yeah.
think we need to definitely get ahead of the ball before it really starts rolling downhill and then we
Yeah.
can't push it back up and staying abreast of what's going on. I know we have a number of our representatives in our community that are very, very engaging with the
Hmm.
community, both sides of the base. So I'm hoping that they definitely get involved. And we have a couple of them that do lives quite often, but they
Yeah,
are also out in the community. So I'm hoping that that
right.
happens. Hmm.
That was I was in a I was in a webinar right after the administration took over, and that was some advice that was given in regards to working across the aisle on both sides.
Hmm.
And this is the time really to have those communications, because actually surprised that the administration didn't even give the elected officials a heads up, so that the elected
Hmm.
officials could then give their constituents a heads up. I mean, they may want to say in the future, hey, we need some time, we need to be able, there's a better way, we understand you want to do this, but there's a better way, so that
Hmm.
we're not having to have this shock and awe, so that we could be getting our constituents prepared and ready, or
Hmm.
we can give this information out.
Hmm.
We have to understand that this administration does things at a drop of a hat,
Hmm.
and so we can't go into a panic and a frenzy. Anytime an
Hmm.
administration comes on board, we have to be aware that they're going to put people in place for their own. So within the first 60 days, there's always going to be some shakeup. It happened with Obama, it happened with
Correct.
Biden and Bush, and so we have to be aware of that. I think what makes this different, though, is the monetary and financial aspects that impact our daily lives,
Correct.
and our civil liberties at this point.
Right. Right. So again, I'm just really hoping, because I think that a lot of things are going to happen just the way we have seen them happen in
Yeah.
the last 5, 7 days, is that it's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. And I think that they are going to have, our elected officials in those positions are going to have to stay ready and stay connected to their constituents in the community, so that we can all stay informed. Because uh, what we don't need is communities that are afraid,
Hmm.
in a space, and just not being aware of what's going on. Because I'm
Right.
just people the last few days that I spoke to, they are afraid and what's going to happen. And we
Yeah.
don't want to elderly people um, in a space where they're afraid, that they don't know what's going to happen with their social security. They don't know what's going to happen with food. Prices are going up, still going
Mhm.
up. We don't want that. We want our constituents to come back and keep us informed.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So some of the things that we do know right now, just as a recap, and I have this list I'm gonna show also, but we know that the order will temporarily be blocked until February 3rd. We
Hmm.
see, Trump also putting out offers to buy out and avoid possible litigation, to federal employees. OMB has asked that the
Hmm.
information be submitted to them by February 7th. So this is all kind of moving kind of quick. That means the agencies need to report about their grants and about their program specifically, and get
Hmm.
back to the Office of Management by February 7th. HUD has confirmed that the tenant based rental assistance and project based rental assistance will be excluded from the federal rent residence assistance pause. So that's a good thing. Um,
Hmm.
they have put out information about the public housing agencies will receive February tenant based rental assistance payments as scheduled,
Hmm.
but all other grants to the public housing agencies are paused until further notice, and users do not have access to those funds. One thing that has been put out on both sides, though, is that all funding appropriated by Congress, um, including community development grants and other funding necessary to modernize and improve affordable units should be obligated,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes along with other programs. I actually saw someone, in the Republican Party come out and say, some of these programs are appropriated by Congress and approved. And so I think we'll see a lot of things happen over these next days.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just being aware. Some possible impacts is that unemployment numbers could go up. There's nearly
Mm-hmm.
80 million people in the United States that are enrolled in Medicaid and public health insurance. Um, if the federal money for Medicaid doesn't show up, states will be left holding the bag. So that's something to be aware of. And ultimately, hospitals or nursing homes and doctors,
Mm-hmm.
could lose funding as well. So these are some things that we are, paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, agencies are all joining together to be part of the litigation. They're asking for to support your attorney general if you do live in a state that has an active attorney general fighting for the people. And we'll hear more, I think, in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly is for the listeners here on TN Conversation Live? We're on with Chakirah Parker, financial educator, trainer, and coach. OMB, for those that are listening that may not know what OMB stands for.
Okay, yeah, that's a wonderful question. So OMB, they are the one who gives out and manages the direction for the it's Office of the President's Office of Management and Budget. So they're handling all the management and the budget, all the fiscal responsibility. Um, Falls within this particular office, and so it's the Office of Management and Budget. In fact, I'm going to
Excuse me.
let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and show which programs we're looking at. So these are the ones that all have to report in about how they're using their funds. And on this list, the New York Times did a really good job about, I pulled out some, so I'm going to show you. But they pulled out some different ones that are highlighted in yellow as far as updates. And so, just to give you an idea, I'm going to slow down just to give you an idea. Here's one right here, National Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. Remember again, there's 2,600 programs that are having to be reviewed. Corrections, research, and evaluation and policy. And this is under the Department of Justice. I'm going to Emmett Till Cold Case Investigation Program. That popped out to me. Improving the investigation of prosecution of child abuse and regional and local child advocacy. So there's a lot of programs. Juvenile justice and delinquency prevention. These are just a few that are popping out to me, but we can see there's a wide range of programs that come under Commodity Credit Corporation funding to alleviate emergency supply chain. Let me see, there's one specifically that I want to show you that I'm wondering and I'm hoping, continues to receive funding that impacts our communities. Hold on, very low. There's one, it's called Very Low to Moderate Income Housing Loan Guarantee. And we know that those people need those types of, they need those services. And so again, there's just really a cross section of programs. Women and minorities in science and technology, math and mathematics. This one right here, I think probably could be a program that would be impacted because he doesn't want anything that has to do with diversity, equity, or
Hmm.
inclusion.
Big one.
So if there's any programs that say anything about minority, then he's already said, what the intention is about that. So that is a concern.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely have heard a lot of chatter on that. That's going to definitely be a big one. A lot of people will
Hmm.
probably be out of a job, but
Yeah. Well, even with being talking about even out of a job, um,
mhm,
the White House, and I'm seeing if I have the letter up here, the White House immediately put a hiring freeze, um,
mhm,
you know, for any positions that were open or that needed to be filled. I mean, there's already a hiring freeze, so if it was in process,
mhm,
he already put a stop to that.
mhm. Are you able to find that letter? Because
Yeah, I know.
that is going to be huge. Because I do know, I think that started in 2020 with George Floyd, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
and you know, people getting together and really sounding the alarm on being
Yeah.
diverse. So
Yep.
that is going
Yes.
to
Yep.
be.
So here it goes. Immediately, by authority vested in me as the president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, I hereby order a freeze on hiring any of federal civilian employees to be applied through the executive branch. As part of this freeze, no federal civilian position that is vacant at noon on January 20th may be filled, and no new position may be created except as
Mhm,
otherwise provided for by in this memorandum. So said it doesn't include the military, but I mean it's very, very clear the hiring freeze as of the
mhm.
20th. So for the last nine
Wow.
days,
Mhm. Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah, that
there's
one didn't.
lots
That
of
one didn't
lots
show.
of
Oh, there
changes.
we go. Hiring
Yeah,
freeze.
lots of
And
changes.
is that directly right there on
Yeah,
the White
you can
House?
find that on the White House .gov.
Mm, okay.
So there's I have alerts as a bank regulator. I have alerts for the OCC, the FDIC, a lot of the federal agencies. And if you're really
Mhm,
wanting any of those information out there, everybody, you can also go in there and you can create, where you're getting the information, you're getting the memos when there's changes. Um, there's a lot of agencies out there. So maybe things that are impacting you
mhm,
directly, maybe those are the specific ones that you want to pay attention to. Um,
mhm,
but you can be able to get the information and try to get into the community. But again, those national organizations that are coming out of DC, those are also some of the best ways that you can stay up to date and also support the effort as well, so that you're aware of what's going on. Yep. Trump's action of giving control of administration to the state accommodates people who question his qualifications. What do you think she meant by that? Oh, I think what she's saying is that he might have less to do. What do you think, Candy? What do you think about that statement? I think as far as strategically, she's saying giving the control to the administration to the state accommodates people who question his qualifications.
mhm.
I
Well,
think it
I
has to
don't.
do with his. I think it has to do with his backing. I mean, that's the whole point of the Republican Party is to eliminate
Mhm,
the oversight of federal mandates, right? This seems like a whole
Mm-hmm.
lot of federal mandates, but that's the whole, that's the whole engine, behind it, which is to
Mm-hmm.
not have a lot of oversight and have big government in people's lives. And so I
Mm-hmm.
really think that that's more so the objective, because the people that elected him,
Mm-hmm.
that is, what they always say. And again,
They wanted.
he specifically mentioned Marxist. I don't, if anybody wants to look up what Marxist ideology is, but that would be it, and he
Mhm.
specifically mentioned that in a government memo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. The He did run on removing government out of the states and
Hmm.
having the states more involved in what goes on in their, in state by state. Um, I want to just say hello to Brother Chad, student minister, Brother Chad Muhammad, Mosque number 47, Valeria Chambers, that joined us, and so many other people that joined us on Tea and Conversation. We are
Yeah.
hearing about the freeze. I have not heard anything thus far. We're coming up on noon, and you just never know when President Trump is going to be on the
Hmm.
television. I'm sure we'll
Hmm.
probably see him on the television almost every day,
I'm
giving us
sure
an
of it.
update or doing something or changing something or adding something. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be hearing something of, definitely about this freeze
Yeah.
in the next day or two of what's happening, what has changed, and I look
Over these
forward
next
to.
4 years, in giving the definition of what Marxism is, for anybody who's not aware, Marxism is a political philosophy and method of social economic analysis. Um,
Hmm.
so, as we talked about before, he wants to have everybody, we've heard it, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, right? Everything
Hmm.
should be, everything, everybody has the same opportunity, the same chance to succeed, right?
Hmm.
But that is really what he's pushing for. So I think even, we were talking yesterday on one of the posts in the Black Business Bus Tour, is that
Hmm.
even more programs may be on the chopping block, because the direction that
Hmm.
he's going is removing what
Hmm.
he feels is diversity, equity, inclusion, and making sure that everybody is the same. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Mm. So I hadn't looked at it like that. That might be the reason that
mm-hmm,
making it that everyone is the same. But I'm just hoping that while he is doing that, that we are all getting the same. This kind of go off, but I'll get back on.
mm-hmm,
Having the same opportunities, same justice, same livable wages, the same in reference to housing, interest rate, because we do know that people now are looking at your uh, zip code in reference to how to bill, what your uh, price is going to be. I just heard this
mm,
week that they are also looking at your zip code in reference to when you uh, book a flight. So
mm.
we, yeah, so all of those
Wow.
things, I'm hoping that it is equal and fair to everyone without us having the diversity
Yeah.
that I
One of the
talk.
things you and I talked about in regards to preparation is, if
Mhm.
we know that to be true, right?
Mhm.
As a
Mhm.
mathematician, we look at what is X. So if we know that to be true, then what are we able to take advantage of that's going to improve our lives? That will be so training programs will most likely
Mhm.
be, something that's still going to be supported. So then what
Correct.
training programs
Mhm.
can we go ahead and take advantage of, that's going to
Mhm.
improve ourselves, to be able to get us into a higher position so that we can make more money,
Mhm.
so we need to be able to look at then what will be constant and what will be available, so that we can have a direct impact on our life. We have, 4 years of the
And
policies. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Mhm. And yes, we definitely was talking about that prior to, and I'm hoping that Shakira Parker will be one of our weekly contributors as well, because I think she brings so much value and can help educate our community, because we're going to need it the next 4 years. If we know that certain things are coming, we need to
Mm,
prepare. Cannot
sure.
just sit back and just talk about what we hear on social
That's right.
media, talk about what's happening on the evening news, and just get upset about it. We have to come up with a plan. And I
Yep.
say this all the time. If they, whoever they is, do not want African American Black studies, talking Black history in school, in
Hmm.
those spaces, if they do not, it is our responsibility on a Saturday morning to get our
Absolutely.
children together in a space to
Hmm.
educate them on whatever you think is important for them to learn in reference to our own history. We
Absolutely.
have to do that.
Yep.
And you
Yeah.
know what? We'll find ourselves being more and more connected to our children.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gives a sense of pride. It gives a sense
Yeah.
of reverence. Even, when the Tuskegee, and our voice is still heard when
Yes.
he was going to remove the Tuskegee information from the Air Force training materials. There was an outcry. So we always have a voice. Nothing is final or set in stone, right? It is
Hmm.
still we the people, right? And don't forget, there's another election cycle that will be coming up that we have to prepare for as well. So this was
Hmm.
presidential election, but there is another election cycle that's coming. So if you don't like it, then you get prepared. Um, the Tuskegee Airmen, and my family, we actually traveled to DC in 2022. Our family has one of the last Tuskegee Airmen that
Mm.
was living, and so Mr. Colonel Brigadier General Colonel Charles McGee. So you can look him up.
Hmm.
But that does something for that generation. For us to travel, we traveled out there about five family members, so that we could go to DC for that very monumental, but it did something to their self-esteem when they were able to
Hmm.
hear their history and learn about their history. And so, just to your point, we have to own that. I want
Yes.
to backtrack. If we know that he said businesses, programs that support businesses will stay in play, ding ding, okay, that means that we need to put something in play, that we have a business, right? We have to listen to what is going to pre-exist.
Hmm.
We have some things that are going to be cut out, but what is going to be ongoing? Then how
Hmm.
do we get into those spaces?
Right. How do we get into those spaces? I'm just hoping, Sister Shakira, that we just don't um, waste a lot of time. And we
Yeah,
can't wait until that last year to start figuring things out. If there's going to be job cuts and people have
yeah.
been, we talked about this earlier as well, if they have been in those positions for, 10, 15, 20 years, and your job may be cut, how do you take those skills and create something for yourself? How do you create
Hmm.
something? That's if you don't want to go back into a workforce, because a lot of people, they may not want to go back into the workforce and put another 15
Right.
years in another
Yep.
space, another job. So taking those skills and creating your own jobs. I know young people are doing it. Young people are
Hmm.
creating uh, every
They're
which
not they're not
way,
afraid to do that at all.
afraid at all. They're not afraid at all. So
No, they are
with
courageous.
yes, they are definitely courageous. I was talking to a couple of them not long ago at Tea and Conversation, which is every second and fourth Saturday at Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food, and they were saying, they only given uh, a job 2 years to get the skills to move on to another job, to get the
Hmm.
skills to create their own job in
Right.
5 years. they have an absolute solid plan of what they're going
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I think about as far as that, the difference, no one told them that they couldn't.
Yeah,
They were born
no.
into a generation where everybody told them that they could.
Oh my God.
Someone
Let
is,
me tell you.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, let me say when you said that, it reminds me of my grandmother. Then it reminds me of my mom. My grandmother said, "You stay on that job. Don't you leave that job." And then
right.
my yeah, and my mom would say, "You stay on that job because you
Mhm.
don't have another job to go to, but because you was working all day, you didn't have time to go find another job
Right.
anyway. So now you stuck on that job for
You stuck
10,
on it.
15 years. So
Yep.
there you go."
Yep. You
Yeah,
have that, and then you also have the ceiling. You know, for the millennials, there's no ceiling. They didn't have to grow up in an
yes,
era where they had to constantly prove. They just had to be. Their competitors were their other, were their other students and things like that. They were able to see that the sky's the limit, and so that's what they're shooting for. And I love that. I love that.
yeah, yeah. I love it too. I wish I would have had that type of experience. God only knows where I would be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
each generation is definitely uh less encumbered. I am concerned for the ones in our middle school and our high school who's growing up right now, and this will be their experience over the next 4 years, because I think it could have two different impacts. One, that there is one thing that the millennials don't have. They do take it for granted. I will say that
yeah.
while they are courageous, they take, I think, some things for granted, that the way that it is will always be. I think that's
Yeah.
an
Hmm.
opportunity that
Yes.
they could improve upon. So
Hmm.
maybe now the generation right now that's seeing this, before they're hitting the college, they can realize, okay, we have to do a better job about being civically engaged,
Hmm.
because things can change like this, and
Hmm.
the way we think they are may not always be, and
Hmm.
so they'll get more involved in public life and community
Yes.
life,
Hmm.
and maybe we'll see them more, because I think that is maybe the only that's one of the opportunities I see that they could do better on, is being more involved. We see all the time when we're out and about in these community spaces, we're like, man, where's the young folks at? Right? They're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
them. They're doing them. But now they may realize, oh
Hmm.
shoot, we may need to get more involved.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely can see that coming along the way because I know a number of events that I went to last year, and they talked about the young people definitely wasn't involved and engaged with the voting process. So I do think that this will definitely wake them up on both
Yeah.
sides of the party to
Yeah.
get involved and get involved for the better, get involved for the change because I do know that the older group of people are getting tired. They're
Yeah.
getting tired. They're
They're ready to
wanting to
come off guard.
yes, they want to pass the baton on to the young people, and so yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Sister Shakira Parker, if you have any last things you want to add to this wonderful conversation this morning, hopefully people that are listening are not as nervous, not as
Yeah.
afraid, and, ready to just come up with plans for their household, their neighborhood, their community, and get involved. And just, it's nothing like having a plan, period.
And nothing
Period.
like having a plan. I would say that, um, we live in an era of where things can be sensationalized. So let's
Yes.
just, make sure that we're verifying, we're validating, get your
Yes.
financial information from reputable sources.
Mhm.
We talked about some of those. Look for the national organizations, look for people who, are in those spaces, who are certified. When I teach, I always talk about, we can't get our financial information from the cook down the street, or from our mechanic, just like we wouldn't go to our mechanic to get our hair done.
Mhm.
So we just got to, be very aware And then just know that God is still in control, and that your destiny is predetermined, and that's
Yeah.
who we answer to. And
Yeah.
so we can't undermine the fact
Hmm.
that we are always going to be okay.
Yeah.
We've come through a lot, and we will always be okay. We do got to, tighten up, and plan and strategize, but we're not going to roll over. We will be okay. God is in control, and we're going to make sure that ourselves and our family are prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With that being said, I am Candy Lowe, the host of Tea and Conversation, and thank you everyone for yeah. Thank you so much for coming on with us. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe on your platforms as well. And I will see everybody on the next Tea and Conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Candy.
You're welcome, sweetheart.